Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Avery and today's video is going to be all about my new budget for 2025. Sorry if I sound a bit ill. I have been sick this past week and I'm just very congested right now. And if you hear music, I'll just let you know right now, I live in a house that has been split into 3 different apartment units, and one of the neighbors always is listening to music. Doesn't matter what time of the day, doesn't matter how loud it is or what's going on, they're listening to music. So I hope that doesn't pick up in the background, but you might hear it. So let's get into it. I'm gonna tell you what my thoughts were when creating this budget, how I went into the planning process for it, and then at the end, we are going to take all of the money I have available to me in my bank account and actually assign it out into each specific category. My channel is all about my personal finance journey, so if that's something that interests you, definitely hit the subscribe button and stick around. And if you get anything out of this video, I'd love it if you'd hit the like button, as it really helps out support my channel. So like mentioned, I use YNAB, which is a digital envelope budgeting system. So if you're used to cash envelopes, it's essentially that, but in a digital way, so with digital envelopes like I mentioned. I've been using this software since 2021 and it's really helped me with planning and my long-term finances. So if you're interested in it, I will leave a link down below for a 34-day free trial. If you end up subscribing using my link, you'll get an additional 30 days free. I highly recommend checking out some videos from their actual YouTube channel that tells you how to create a budget with using YNAB. Otherwise, I hope you do get a lot out of this video just to see how someone with real life perspective ends up making a budget and what they're thinking of. So I want to give you a little bit of overview into my planning process first, what I was thinking about as I have been working on this for the past few weeks. Then we'll go into what my actual budget categories are. And then finally, we're going to take all the money I have in my bank accounts and we're going to assign them out based off of my new rules or priorities for the year. I did mention on the community tab whether people would prefer me to just do a more broader overview or if they wanted me to go in step by step. And I ended up getting more people that asked for the in-depth step by step. But honestly, I have been thinking about this and working on this for weeks now, and it just would have not made sense in a video. It literally probably would have been like 25 hours long for how much time I've put into this budget. So I'm sorry about that, but it still should be hopefully beneficial or at least interesting for you either way. Okay, let's first talk about what I was doing basically on Google Sheets or Google Drive, and it's basically my chicken scratch document because I did not want to just start making a bunch of changes to YNAB until I had an understanding on what I actually wanted or what I was doing. So that's kind of what's happening here. I was originally thinking about between doing a complete fresh start in YNAB, which essentially is you are clearing out your transaction history and you're just literally starting fresh, but it keeps some of your customization, so like any categories that you've already created and your targets, and it also keeps the direct import if you have your accounts connected. That's originally what I was thinking I was going to do versus creating a new budget in YNAB, which you start completely from scratch. It's like you're just completely starting over. And I will leave links down below because I kept links to everything in my actual budgeting, like planning sessions. But I actually ended up kind of doing neither of these things simply because if you remember or if you saw, I had a video earlier this year, which I'm saying earlier this year like it wasn't just 10 days ago. So the very beginning of the year, I already had spent over $2,200 from my emergency fund, and that really kind of changed how I was thinking about my finances because I went in initially with one goal in mind or one priority in mind, but after that happened, I really kind of radically reshaped how I am tackling this year and just my money going forward, which I'll talk about more as I get into the actual budget. But since I had already started having transactions happen and I really wasn't expecting it right at the beginning of the year, and of course the end of last year was just a very busy time, I am at the point where I don't want to do a complete fresh start because I don't want to mess up the tracking that I've already done into the month of January. So that's kind of my thought process there. So I guess I did neither. I didn't make a fresh start and I didn't create a brand new budget. I just completely like revamped, remixed, re-upped my current budget, and it should look very different if you've seen any of my previous budget with me videos. I will say though, if you're doing a fresh start, make sure that you export your budget data, spending and budget data, and even if you're not doing a fresh start, I ended up exporting a lot of my spending and budget data and looking at it in Google Sheets or just like in a spreadsheet, just so I could get understanding of how I have been spending over these past few years, which I will show you in one of these spreadsheets. But the whole point of why you should export your data before you do a fresh start is, like mentioned, it does clear out all of your transaction history. So if you want that historical spending data, you definitely need to export it before you do a fresh start. Of course, when you do a fresh start, it's not actually like deleting your complete last budget, it's just archiving it essentially. So if you end up doing a fresh start and you don't like it in YNAB, you can just restore your old budget and just continue on as normal. Now let me tell you what my actual budget priorities were with this fresh start, or this pseudo fresh start, I guess, is I wanted to get more granular with my categories and my category groups. So previously I was kind of going kind of specific, kind of general. I wasn't committing either way to categories, and it just became very disorganized over time. So for example, I was budgeting like category groups by like fixed expenses, non-monthly expenses, but now I get more into like the specific thing. So with like subscriptions, I thought about, is that subscription like entertainment? Is it like utility like YNAB, or is it something else? And then I categorized it that way, which again, all this will make sense when I actually show you the budget. I also plan on using YNAB's focused views feature. So with that, essentially, since I'm going to have so many different categories, I want to also just be able to quickly filter like what are the most important things. So like anything that actually requires, without a doubt, I have to put money into in order to keep living my life. So like rent, food I have to eat, car expenses, things like that. I am going to eventually filter out and focus those views. That way I can look at them very quickly if I'm in the scenario where I'm at limited income or just do not have enough money or income coming in to cover all of my categories. And by this I mean I end up putting a target on every single category. So in YNAB you can create targets to help you guide your spending and how much money to set aside. I kind of think of YNAB as like mini sinking funds in a way. So that's kind of why I've put targets on every category. That way I had a more honest or better understanding of what I actually am saving for or have coming up in a yearly span, and past that too, like in a non-yearly, just very long term. That way I'm just truly seeing like how much money does it actually take to live my life, and am I fine with that, or should I change some things? That kind of goes into my next point. I was looking at monthly and non-monthly expenses. So monthly expenses are pretty easy. They're like rent, they're like internet, things like that. Your phone bill you might pay monthly. But then there's also expenses that are not necessarily unexpected, but they're non-monthly. With YNAB, they get into this idea of, I don't think they use this terminology anymore, but it's called true expenses is what they used to call it. And it's essentially like, not every emergency you have is a true emergency. A great example is like getting tires on your car. You could say that you know at some point that you're going to need new tires, so it's not unexpected. So it's not necessarily an emergency if you start planning for it ahead of time and setting money aside over time in order to get to the point where, at least as close as possible, when your tires do go out, you already have money in your bank account just waiting for that expense. So that's kind of how I understand non-monthly expenses. But there's many different examples of this. A very small example, because I was thinking about my auto categories a lot, was I know that I have to get my license renewed every, like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, however many years you're supposed to renew your license. I know that that's going to happen regardless. And not that it's not exactly a big expense, but it's still an expense that's non-monthly, true expense that I can still plan for ahead of time in a way that it doesn't catch me off guard or catch me by surprise when it actually comes around. This is just the way that I like to think about it. Of course, for many people, they might find to be this granular or this planned out to be very stressful and overwhelming. So if it's not something that you would do well with, don't worry about it. I will tell you that YNAB wants you to sort of think this way. Of course, I think it works also better for people that are on a limited income. So if you have a large amount of money or cash flow coming in, you might be able to better roll with the punches, like for tires or whatever. For any $500, $1,000 expense that might come up, that's not unexpected, not quite an emergency, whatever. But for me, I'm on a limited income in the sense that I don't bring in, I make $60,000 a year. I bring in less money, obviously, with taxes and deductions and everything taken out. So I just don't have this limitless amount of money that I can work with. So it's very important for me that I'm intentional with my spending and my money. Which kind of brings me to my last point with my budget priorities, is that not every category can get funded monthly, since I don't have a limitless amount of income, or since I don't have an infinite amount of income, I guess I should say. So not every category can get funded monthly, and I'm fine with that. Sometimes I think that, it's okay to make like an aspirational budget or a budget that you should just keep things in mind. I just never want to lose track of the big overall picture on more of a long-term planning, which is why I have everything in here, or at least I've done the best I can to get everything in here but I don't want to stress myself out by worrying about if I don't have enough income coming in to actually cover everything. Which kind of brings me back up to the focus views thing. So if I only have so much money, I also want to be able to quickly filter in and see what I have to set money aside for first before I can do everything else. I will tell you right now, I have not created the focus views yet because this video is going to be more focused on my overall budget. So how I actually did this, I did a few different things. Like mentioned, I exported all of my spending data and I tried to look for trends and a breakdown. So for example, I looked at everything for all of the data I had, so from 2021 through 2024, but I knew if some categories were kind of anomalies, or if I knew that my spending had changed over time in a way, especially if it was more expensive or it's more money is being spent from that category. I'm thinking of medical right now. I ended up comparing my 2021 through 2024 data versus just my 2024 data, that way to see which one I thought was more accurate when helping to determine what sort of monthly spending targets I should set, or savings targets. And then another thing I like about YNAB is even if you're not saving for it right away, so just carrying over month to month, it will automatically show you like how much money you need to set aside if you start in January versus February saving for that goal, if it has a deadline. But if I don't have the ability to save for it right away, but I do know it's important, I'm going to set a scheduled transaction as a reminder into my budget. That way I know when to start saving for it. I think that'll also probably make more sense when I actually get into the budget. Sorry. Definitely skip ahead if you just want to see my actual budget, because I like to give you like the why or how I got to the point. I really think it's interesting to see how people think through the process of creating a budget or just anything at all. And that is essentially what I'm doing right now. So if you don't care, skip around. And YNAB has recently shifted away from they used to have 4 rules, and now they are doing a different sort of method, which is to ask yourself 5 questions when you are creating or assigning money in your budget. And those questions I ended up using to guide my thinking on how to actually assign money, make priorities, things like that. So these 5 questions, I'll just read them off to you and just let you know, is that they have reality. So what does this money need to do before I get paid again? So if this is especially important if you're on a limited income, you may not be able to fund every category. So what does that money actually need to do, or where does it need to go in order to keep your basic lifestyle going? And then stability, I talked about this, but what larger, less frequent spending do I need to prepare for? So like the non-monthly or the unexpected, but not, I never have a good way to explain it, like the unexpected or unplanned things that are going on that just don't happen on a monthly basis. Resilience, so getting a month ahead, what money can I set aside for next month's spending? So with my budget, I really wanted to make sure I was thinking both long-term and short-term with it. So I want to be able to make sure I have money to set aside to the next month. So I'm not just worried about, like, I am lucky in the sense that I am a month ahead, or I consider myself a month ahead. What I mean by that is I'm not worried about when my paychecks are coming in, because I have given every dollar a job in a way that it does not matter when certain things are due. In fact, I actually do not think about when certain things are due very often, especially if it's set up on auto pay, which once you get to a point with your finances that you are able to actually do that, I think it gets a lot easier, especially using YNAB. Creation is what goals, large or small, do I want to prioritize? This is kind of, I think, a funny word for it, but I do understand what they're saying. So I ended up putting more like, this kind of goes back to what I was saying about aspirational categories. This is kind of what I think about by creation. So like, do I have any goals that aren't necessarily tied to just keeping my lifestyle going, not necessarily tied to future emergencies, but more so like, what do I actually want to do with my money to live the life that I want to live? And then flexibility, what changes do I need to make, if any? So I think this whole budget for me is being flexible because I'm trying to shift how I'm thinking about emergency money specifically. I'm trying to think about how I plan for long term, or just not necessarily long term, but I'm trying to reconsider how I assign money across a yearly basis. And I'll get into that when I actually assign the money. And that's kind of what I'm doing, flexibility, with the understanding that I know in the future, if I need to just throw it all away and try again, I can keep doing that. And that's what I really like personally, is being very flexible with my thinking and my spending with my money. At the end of the day, you can assign the money how you want, but there is just, money is like a big pot. Like, how do I explain this? So like money to me, I can, like when I had the $2,200 emergency expense, in my head, I could have been like, oh, I only have like $7,500 left in my emergency fund. You'll feel restrictive, but actually how I started thinking about it, and you'll see this here, I promise, you'll see it when I get into this, is I started thinking about, well, why am I just holding money in a general emergency fund? Why aren't I assigning it in a way that actually makes sense for what sort of emergencies do I have? And if you're listening to this, you're like, okay, duh, that's what you're supposed to be doing with YNAB. Yeah, like that's generally how they want you to do it. You can obviously do it however you want, but in general, I feel like I'm getting closer to the purpose or the intended use of YNAB, and I do think in the long run I might feel YNAB poor, so I might have a lot of money in categories but not feel like I have a lot of things going on, which is why I know I got to this point where I was making this general emergency fund, but now I'm shifting back the other direction, because especially now that I'm engaged, I think I'm going to just do better in this way. And if I ever bring or onboard Nathan into this budget, I do not know if we're going to combine our finances. It'll also help us in that sense as well. So then in this tab, I ended up just kind of mapping out what my new budget category groups would be, and then all the categories within them. And there's obviously a lot of categories here. There's a few I do want to highlight just for interest on what my thinking was with it. So for some of these, I was using, so like for example, in a different spreadsheet, I was basically doing like chicken scratch to figure out some of these categories, and how much money I should make the target. So like medical and therapy, this is a very important category for me because I have a lot of medical expenses, but I never had sat down before and looked at what the register was for these expenses. So I ended up exporting all my data over to Google Drive and then adding filters and just looking at everything. I'm sure if you know how to use like any sort of spreadsheet data, you know what I'm talking about, in order to see how much money would be good and average it out into a monthly sort of sinking fund. I did the same thing with vet expenses because I have a 1-year-old dog named Cece. She is a Shih Tzu, and she has been expensive, obviously, because when you first get a dog, they are quite expensive. There's a lot of upfront costs, and I'm hoping over time that she'll end up like leveling out. So now that she has gotten spayed and she's had some like startup costs, essentially, I am hoping that the amount of money that she needs on a monthly averaged out basis is not as high as it's been, but we're still planning at the worst case scenario, like what we need to do. I will say another thing about her expenses specifically is Nathan does send me money to help offset the cost of this, so I'm not like, even if it's a lot of money, I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, that's just some thoughts there. But anyways, back to this. I have a household category, debt and savings. I have the Avery Improvement Fund, which I think I've had in the past. I don't exactly remember, but it's essentially like just self-development, personal development, health as well, whatever. Vacation is kind of a very large category. I'm kind of doing this a few different ways. This is obviously not YNAB, but this is one of my spreadsheets still, because I didn't want to make all of these changes in YNAB and then have to keep moving things around. And then we've got food, medical, dogs cost $1 trillion, fun stuff, holidays and gifts, car. I really have expanded what my car categories are just to get more into the true expenses. Other, which I think I ended up just wrapping into household because I did not want to have an other category for stuff I forgot, just one thing. Entertainment, technology, things like that. I have some notes down here as well to help me understand like what the hell I'm talking about. So like with household, this is like different from food, although you can combine them together if you want to. So it's like laundry detergent, toilet paper, paper towels, cleaning supplies. And then there was other notes that I had here, like I was using the YNAB subreddit a lot to see how other people were doing things. things or creating their budget or what sort of categories they were doing. So someone had said at the end of each month, they moved the leftover amount of money they had in their transportation or like their gas, fuel, whatever category to their car maintenance. I kind of like that idea. I think up here I had said that I wanted to do other maintenance, basically $500 a year, but they were saying they help offset it by essentially any sort of leftover money. They just moved it over to that. So I thought that was interesting. When I was planning out my new phone, I was thinking about how to subtract out and basically estimate the cost on this, because I have a couple like Apple gift cards that I can use to help offset the cost of the phone. Some thoughts about if I should even have like Apple Care, because I currently have Apple Care for my MacBook, my iPad, and my iPhone. And in a way, like I've had most of these items, like I've had my phone for over 2 years now. I've had my iPad for like almost 2 years now, and then my MacBook is my newest item. Obviously, if I had to keep Apple Care on one of them, I'd keep it on the MacBook, and if I had to drop it from one of them, I'd probably drop it from the iPhone, because it's about time for me to get a new one. But I don't know, it's kind of like a form of insurance. It's just some stuff I've been thinking about. I ended up keeping it for now. Health and beauty, or what is it, beauty and clothing, is just like clothes, skincare, makeup. My iCloud subscription, I pay 99 cents for the 50 gigabytes, and I need to delete photos because 42 gigabytes of those is like 20,000 photos and videos and everything. Shout out to Scrunchy Finance. I'm forgetting her name right now, but her YouTube channel is Scrunchy Finance, because she commented on the last time I talked about this, and she said that you can actually go to iCloud.com and organize and delete photos a lot quicker than you can from your phone. This is a fucking lifesaver, because I did not know that. And I just was not at the point where I was like, there's only so many days on this earth. The planet only rotates so many times. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to delete 20,000 photos. But from my iPhone, just sitting there on my phone, because I get so distracted. But if I do it from iCloud.com, I should do a lot better with that. And then I can just clean up things a bit. And also, I have a hard drive now, because I try to keep my like YouTube footage on there. And I also think if I really want to keep something, but I'll keep it on my phone, I could figure out a way to put it on my hard drive. And then just like a note about just healthcare spending, because when I come up here, where's that medical, I was estimating $60 a month for therapy, $40 for my like prescriptions, $50 for supplies because I have chronic health issues, and then everything else, essentially like your out-of-pocket max, like everything that kind of goes into your out-of-pocket max or various items, bills, whatever, $125 a month. I actually have a pretty good health insurance plan. My out-of-pocket max is $2,500 a year. My deductible is $400 a year. Blah, 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 blah. And I only pay like $58 a paycheck for it. But when I was thinking about this one specifically, because I put a lot of thought into it, it was like, I already pay like over $1,500 a year in premium. Out of pocket is another whatever, and then I tend to hit the out of pocket max, and then my employer obviously puts a ton of money on their end because I'm only paying a portion of the premium into this. It's just so much money for healthcare. And if you think about it too much, it might freak you out. So, yeah, that's something that happened. But yes, that is what's going on here. Now I'm going to take you into my literal budget in YNAB and show you how it looks. Okay, so I'm zoomed in so you can actually see everything, hopefully, although I will say this looked very less stressful when I had it at 100%, but at 125% on here, I have all of these categories that I put into, basically I took everything that I mapped out on my Google Sheets and I moved it over into actual YNAB. So I have all these category groups. I'm going to go through them kind of briefly, and because the big thing I want to do is actually take this money I have up here and assign it out based off of my new budget priorities. But taking a look here, I tried my best to put these in an order of like prioritization. The wish form just goes up top because, and maybe this is kind of an example. So YNAB has like recommends you make a wish farm. So it's like I'll put something down below. But essentially, it's like stuff that does not fit into necessarily everything else. It can be like whatever you want or are wishing for. You can make a category for that in your budget. And then with any leftover money, you'll figure out how much you are actually caring for it based off of, does money actually end up in those categories? That's probably not a great explanation of this. That's kind of how I think of it. So that's at the very top because that's just what I want to think about first when I have any extra money. But everything else is kind of in order of importance. So the most important thing is obviously, well, let me tell you what's in the wish farm. So the wish farm, I have a garden. I don't own land. I don't own land, but my mom does, and she has a garden in her backyard of her house, and I thought it'd be interesting this year to maybe resurrect the garden because we have not done it probably since I was a kid living at home. But now that I'm older, I think it might be a great idea for us to do our own garden again. So I'm trying to have money for that, or that's my wish, I guess. And then Invisalign is my other wish. I would prefer to have better teeth, but I don't want to have braces. If you get braces when you're an adult, more power to you, but I'm 26 years old and I need to be taken seriously even at my young age. And I just don't feel like I'd be that confident with braces, so I want Invisalign. But I don't have just $6,500 lying around, so that's also a wish. Okay, so first order of importance is my household, and there's already some spending here because it's January 12th. I have rent, so I pay $672.50, and then renter's insurance, I made sure to put this category in. If we notice over here, maybe I'll make myself smaller. Okay, that's as small as I can get. You'll see that my renter's insurance, I've set up the category in order to have a balance of $250, and I wanted it by the due date of July of 2025 because that's when my renter's insurance will renew, and I'm using an estimate based off of how much it was previously, / just kind of adding a little bit more on top with the assumption that everything goes up in price over time, just to get as close as possible to what I think the cost will be. Household is $30, so it's like paper towels, things like that. Moving, it doesn't look quite right because I've reset all the categories, reset all the available amounts in YNAB, but for moving, I am trying to essentially save the difference of what I think my new rent will be after everything is said and done. So I currently pay $672.50 a month for my portion of rent, and I think when we move, my share of rent will go up to $1,000 a month. So between moving and rent, I'm trying to set aside $1,000 for that. So that comes out to actually $327.50, which we see on the side here. My phone, I already had my phone payment come out, but I do want to switch to Mint Mobile, which I have some notes in each category. So for Mint Mobile, I want to take advantage of the promotion right now that I've been seeing going around, where it's essentially like 50% off for the first year. Same thing. I'm just adding on whatever random taxes or fees there will be and trying to come to an estimated price. I've got Costco. So my portion of Costco is $65. That renews in March. My YNAB subscription, it does cost money to use this budgeting software. I do think it's worth it. So don't let that shy you away. If you are thinking if you think it's like an oxymoron to spend money to save money, think about it this way: you spend money on stupid shit all the time. Might as well put money or investment into your financial future, and if it helps you to spend $10 on average a month in order to keep your finances together and keep everything running and actually build wealth, you should save that money. That's just my opinion. Stuff I forgot to budget for, because I'm trying my best here, but I could forget. Holding category can be hidden because that's kind of a relic of my previous budget / I never used it very often. I was just using it while I was trying to transition to this new budget because I wanted to show you how I'm assigning the money on camera. So then my Amex annual fee, I currently have the Amex Delta whatever card. I'm canceling that, so this is just a reminder to cancel it. So no actual target for that one. Then we go into girls gotta eat. I gotta eat. I gotta eat. Right now, I'm doing pretty well with my spending so far, but essentially when it's all said and done, I'm not too precious personally about how the breakdown of my food spending is. Like, I'm not gonna sit here, although I did set up these targets just to have something more or less a general guideline. In general, I want to spend a combined $400 or less on my food spending each month, which this would actually be a significant decrease from 2024. So that's kind of how that's going. I am doing a no dining out challenge, by which I mean I'm not spending money on dining out, but if I have a gift card or if Nathan wants to take us out, I'm obviously going to partake. But for me, I'm trying to limit any of the money that I spend dining out, which might sound like I'm just shifting it over to him, but I still spent a lot of money on things just when I was out and about at work. That being said, I have not included coffee into this category just because I've decided I'm not going to. Back to what I was actually talking about is between these, I have it set up for $250 for groceries, and then about $50 for coffee, and then $100 for dining out. And this last one is date night, but this is not actually going to get money into it. It's more of a tracking category. So for example, if I ended up treating me and Nathan to like dinner for a date night, I would just pull money from one of these categories and move it over to here. But I'm not essentially like or intentionally setting money aside for this. Does that make sense? But yes, all together, I want to put aside about $400 for the girls gotta eat. Debt and savings. So there's a few things going on here. My Roth IRA, I do have a plan to max out my Roth IRA this year, which would be the first time that I have dollar cost averaged into my Roth IRA. I've maxed it out one other time, did not max it out last year. If I come into some money between now and April, who's to say I won't put some money in there? But for 2025, I want to max it out. So that's about $584 a month, give or take. You take a little bit. That's what's going on there. Insurance deductible. I was thinking about this one a little differently. So with insurance deductible, this is essentially targeting, this is kind of what I mean by like I'm breaking out my emergency fund and thinking about things a little differently. So for my insurance deductibles, I know that like comprehensive on my car is $500. Collision on my car is $500. My renter's insurance deductible is $500. But the likelihood that I'm going to have all of those crises or whatever, the likelihood that I'm going to have to pay all of those deductibles at once is rather low. So I just want to get to $500 in here, and I chose have a balance of $500 for my spending target. And this is to use for basically, I just need to get to this point and refrain from spending it until I get it or whatever. But I think you could also use like refill or fill up to 500 and then it just rolls each month. My student loans. So I currently have forbearance because I'm in the SAVE plan and they just do not know what they're doing with student loans. Who knows? No one knows. So not necessarily sure what's going on with student loans. But I do want to plan, even though SAVE is income driven based repayment, I don't know if that plan is going to really survive within the coming months. Maybe I don't necessarily know what will happen after that. But if I end up reverting back into standard repayment, my estimated cost is $190 a month. So that's why the category is this. If I can pay off my loans quicker, of course I'll do that. I know that YNAB has a loan feature for this, but I just don't personally use it. This just works better for me. Brokerage. So one of my goals this year is to open a brokerage. This is kind of a good example of I don't necessarily know. If I don't have enough money for every single category, that's okay. Like my brokerage is kind of the last place in my rules or whatever's going on. But in theory, if I can put $100 away, I will do that. Otherwise, if I can't do stuff, YNAB has the option where you can snooze the target for the month. So if you are stressed out looking at this, you can snooze it. Another option, I'll put myself down here, is to basically close this if you don't want to look at the progress bars, which I forgot about for quite a while until I was like, oh my god, there's so much stuff on here. I clicked this and I was like, okay, I can look at this a little bit better from time to time. Okay, so my nephew's savings category, this kind of goes back into what I was talking about in my emergency fund video, because if you watch that video, you would know that my emergency fund wasn't actually used for an expense that you would consider mine per se. It was for my sister and her dog. However, that made me realize that like the reason why I'm building wealth is because not just so I can have a bunch of money and hold on to it, but in order to enrich or help out the people that I love. And one of the people I love is my nephew. So my brother, so I have a brother and a sister. So my brother has a 12-year-old son, and he is the only kid in our family. I personally do not plan on having kids for a variety of reasons, one of those being I have too many health issues, but I still want to build wealth and be generous with my wealth, and one of the ways I'm going to do that, and this is something that me and Nathan want to do together, is save money for my nephew. It's so hard talking about him without like saying his actual name, but yeah, that's why it says nephew savings, a little bit of privacy there. But essentially, I put a balance. I want to have $3,000 set aside that I can use in some sort of way for him around the time that he turns 18. So I went ahead and made that target in here, and it tells me I need to assign $44.12 a month in order to reach this goal by August of 2030. So that shouldn't be too bad, but it's very interesting what you can do in YNAB in order, not just on a yearly basis, but you can think multiple years in advance if you would like to. These last ones, income replacement fund, this is essentially my new emergency fund. So there's this idea that once you have covered, or you've made a sinking fund or a category or whatever you want to call it, and you've set aside money for those unplanned but not unexpected true non-monthly expenses, really the only like emergency that you have left is losing your job. So some people have an income replacement fund, so that's kind of what this is. And I have a target of $12,000. This is essentially to help with job loss, but as of now it's not going to be a huge priority, which is why it just says $12,000 needed. Same with the wedding and a house down payment. Don't have a specific plan or in mind. I think the wedding might be in 2026. We don't want to do a big wedding, don't want to spend a lot of money. This is the reason why they just say $8,000 needed eventually, $25,000 eventually, because I don't have a specific time frame in mind. Avery Improvement Fund, so spin classes go into here because that helps me with my like health is wealth. Haircuts, girls gotta look good. Clothing and beauty. So haircuts, I get my hair done about 3 times a year. I just get it cut. I don't color it or anything. This is my natural hair. It's just naturally curly, thank God. But it's $25 a month, so that way I actually think this covers me for 4. No, it does. It's exactly 3. Okay, 3 haircuts because it costs about $65 to cut my hair. Additive, maybe it's not quite $100, but it's below. It's $100 or below. Clothing and beauty. So clothing and beauty. I'm just doing $50 a paycheck. I don't do a lot of beauty regimens or anything, so I don't necessarily need a ton of money for this. And I love not buying clothes. I love not buying clothes. I love not buying clothes, so I don't spend a ton of money on that. And honestly, full transparency, this is something that Nathan likes to treat me to from time to time if I do need things. And it's not that I'm sitting here like, okay, if I need anything, Nathan's just gonna buy it for me. I'm just letting you know that like I don't spend a lot of money for that reason on this, because oftentimes Nathan gets it for me as a gift for Christmas or my birthday or whatever. But I still gotta get my hair supplies, so yeah. Yoga. This is kind of what I mean by aspirational. Obviously, $30 a month is not some huge ask, but as of now, my focus is on my spin classes, and then yoga is if I want to supplement with any sort of yoga classes, because I personally prefer to do yoga in like a yoga studio or just in a class. I know you can do it online on YouTube at your house, but it's just not my preferred way of doing yoga. I want to literally get into a flow state, and it's sort of like meditation in a way, and I'm telling you right now, I'm not meditating in this house. This house is not the vibe, okay? Then personal development, I wouldn't have this category, but I don't necessarily know. This is just to have money set aside, so it'd be a sinking fund. So each month I'll put $35 into there. I guess I should say that a lot of these categories will be I'm putting in this amount of money per month and not necessarily spending from it every single month. So it'll just roll month to month. And then as I build up a little bit of a nest egg, if something comes up, I'll have the money set aside. That's the goal. But yes, $35 a month just for things that I might want to do that will help me in sort of the Avery Improvement Fund sort of spirit, but I don't necessarily know what those things are yet. Vacations, this is probably the messiest category at the moment. So with vacations, I have this kind of set up two different ways. I already know that I have a vacation coming up. So in March, I'm going on a cruise. I feel like if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm going on a cruise. I've only talked about it 1,000 times. But down here is kind of the long-term category, so vacations unspecified. Once I get past the cruise, which I know has a specific deadline, a specific budget, which is why I have all these categories to help me plan for it, I'm going to have just ideally, a lot of this is ideal. Ideally, I'm going to be setting aside $250 or so, or whatever I can afford every month into my vacations category. That way, when a vacation does come up, I can, I already have some money set aside to do it, and I'm not like stressing out at the last second or whatever. Someone in my comments, I'm forgetting who, told me I should do this, so thank you. But as of now, back to the actual cruise categories, what'll happen is once you can see I've already spent money on a flight. Oh, let's talk about this because you see I have this category called cruise reimbursements. This goes into another major expense I had at the beginning of this year that I was not happy with. It was not like excited about. I'm kind of over it now. I really just love having a bit of a unstressed, I guess, way with finances. But I'll tell you right now, this is covering the flights of two of the people I'm going with, and they owe me the money, which this is kind of what I mean by like should you borrow money to people, should you lend money to people, is it helping them, is it enabling them? I do think for one of these people, I am enabling them. I don't want to get super into specifics, but just know I don't plan on going on a cruise again. I am so far in at this point, I kind of have a bit of a sunk cost fallacy. I know I'll have fun at the end of the day, but I know going forward, and this is how I like to think about my finances, is I am not going to do it again. So I just don't want to be in a situation where my ability to go on a vacation is dependent on other people paying for a specific portion of whatever it is we're supposed to pay for. Because when you book the cabin, you can either pay up front or you can go into a payment plan, and a payment plan is essentially a contract. And if you're splitting it amongst three people, you're essentially relying on them fulfilling their duties of the contract, aka paying what they're supposed to pay, or else if they don't, you're either on the hook to cover all of it or you'll lose all your money, blah 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 blah. Yeah, so if someone is struggling just paying the cabin fare, probably shouldn't. They definitely can't afford everything else because there's a lot of like discretionary, auxiliary, adjacent, whatever the word is, costs with going on a cruise. But yeah, in theory, I will get $1,000 back for the flights. I know I'll get at least half of that back. A little worried about the second half. But yeah, it's kind of how that's going. And then I have already spent money for the hotel. Not literally spent the money, but with one of the people that I purchased or basically covered the flight costs up front. They're going to cover the hotel, and they'll subtract out whatever my portion is for the hotel before they pay me back for the flight. So that's kind of my estimate here. But my whole point about all of this was I have all these separate categories to help me plan for this vacation. Once I've done all the spending, what I'm going to do is delete the category. So like show you. Before you delete the category, you have to actually reassign this past activity into a new category. So the way I'm going to do that is that's when it becomes vacations unspecified. So it'll basically, smaller categories to help me plan for the trip and the specific spending or how I want to break down my spending, and then everything will eventually just go back into the vacations fund. But yeah, I've done a whole video on what the cost or projected cost of the cruise will be. I actually think it'll end up being less money than that, which is exactly what you want, to be honest. But if you're interested in that video, I will leave a link down below because it's definitely very interesting. I'll let you know right now, it's very in-depth. But I mentioned this because I've already spent less on the flight than I thought I was going to spend. I've already spent less on the hotel. We're going in on a Sunday. I thought we were going to go in on a Saturday. That's honestly what I would have preferred. Kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, I don't want to compromise on a vacation, but just because of other people. Like, as I get older, I really want things to be how I want them to be. That's just personally how I want things to go. But we're going to go in on Sunday. We're not going to get there till the evening, and the flight or the cruise starts on Monday. So that actually will save me quite a bit of money from Miami spending money wise, because it is expensive to just be out and about in Miami. I'll let you know that. Drinks. I've been having a lot of health issues lately. That's not the point of this video, but it is to tell you that I probably shouldn't drink a lot of alcohol, which is where most of this money is coming from, or most of this like estimate is coming from. So that will in theory be less, but who's to say? I'm not going to do anything. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking with the cruise and vacation. Now we have my medical category. I don't know what's going on with therapy because it's kind of jacked up, but my goal with this is $60 each month. This would cover 2 therapy visits because it's $30 copay each time. I'm thinking about changing my therapist because currently I only go once a month, so it's technically only $30 a month. However, I'm thinking I probably will switch therapists just to go to one that has, I actually can put this into the universe. I'm switching therapists, not because I dislike my old therapist, just because I think we've achieved what we needed to achieve for quite a while now with why I originally went to her. So in the future, I need to focus more on just like chronic illness therapy and just like dealing with all that. So yeah, all that to say, I'm basically planning that my expenses will be higher in the future with therapy. Meds, I think this is kind of a very good example of me trying to extrapolate or extract the data that I had about my spending over the past year, because I've gotten more prescriptions, unfortunately, and yes, I think it'll be about $40 a month when it's all said and done. Medical supplies, it's a sinking fund, $50 a month. Copays, everything else, for whatever reason it says $130, but it's actually $125 a month is what I'm shooting for. And then reimbursements, I actually think this is in the wrong spot, but that will go, I'm gonna hide it actually for now. So yeah, that's medical. Auto and transportation, probably most excited about this one. If anyone can be excited about spending money on a car, I'm not a car person, but this is another reason why the beginning of the year has been so chaotic for me. I need to get new tires, so that's why this is up top with the big old exclamation marks. I need to get new tires. I don't necessarily know, just know with all of these that I'm giving it my best estimate. Obviously, I want to spend less in every single thing if possible. This goes for every single category. So if you're thinking $850 is a lot for tires, okay, maybe it'll be less. If you're thinking it's a little, I hope it's not. I hope it's about $850 because I've obviously looked at some of this, but I do need to get new tires. I want to replace all of them. That's what's going on here. Car insurance, pay this twice a year. It's about $450-ish every single time. It was a lot cheaper last time, but you know, the cost of everything is going up. So about $450 by March 6th, and then it'll be September after that. And it just keeps going like that. Fuel, I don't drive that much. I do get taken to work by Nathan simply because it's $12 a day to park at my job, and I don't live that far away, so that's just completely stupid, honestly. No, that's not happening, because then all my car expenses would be like $500 extra. I would not be making any money. Let's just put it that way. That being said, I still drive a little bit, and that's where this is coming from. $80 a month. Parking, just in case I do have to go there and park or drive for whatever reason I decide to drive. $40 a month, that covers about 3 times going into the office, and then an extra $4 in case I'm just out and about in the city and paying for parking somewhere else. Any sort of parking, basically. AAA, I want to get AAA membership. I do have Geico's like roadside assistance, but and it's cheaper But I just want to get AAA again, so that's kind of what's going on here. But yeah, that's kind of my estimate there. Car registration, this renews in June every year. It's about $75 each year or so. It's definitely cheaper in my hometown, so I'm getting hit with the county additional fees. Oil change, I only need to do an oil change once a year. Don't ask me, I'm not a car expert. But the cost of this, I think because now that oil changes, I'm not a car expert, but $150 a year is what they are saying on the dealership's website, which is where I get my oil change, and I'm not changing that, so $150. This is just my auto maintenance unspecified sinking fund because I don't know anything about cars. My license renewal, see, this is what I'm talking about. We're going way out here. June of 2027, I need about $60, and this is like an 8-year renewal. This will be very easy to cover. And then when we're really thinking about things, at some point I'm gonna need a new car. Hopefully my car lasts longer than this, but if it doesn't, I'm hoping about 10 years from now or so, and hopefully I buy a used car, hopefully used cars aren't that expensive, but $30,000. What's interesting about this is it's 10 years from now, but if I want to cash flow a car purchase for $30,000, starting now, I would need to put $227.28 aside. If I go into the future and I don't put any money aside for January, then it increases to $229.01 if I go into March and I'm not putting money aside. See, it goes up a little bit over time. So that's nice about the target. It'll end up like shifting how much you actually need in order to reach the goal, which you might find stressful or you might not. But yeah, that's the final boss of the car category is literally just getting a new car. For Dogs Cost $1 Trillion Fund, I have a new category here. I've kind of dialed this in, hopefully, in theory, but I do have pet insurance for Cece. It's going to be about $276, hopefully. And then Cece's groom, I took how often she goes to the groomer. So she goes about every 5 weeks, and it alternates between just a bath and a full groom. So that's what's going on there. The bath is a little bit cheaper. The groom is a little more expensive. So I'm just taking the cost between 52 weeks divided by 5 and then looking at how many of those would be baths, how many of those would be a full groom, looking at the cost, adding it up, dividing by 12, and that's how we get to $76.25 each month. Food and treats, she just gets food and treats and we gotta set that aside. So I'm estimating $40 a month. Her vet expenses, so the main expenses now I think are just like various vaccines, random health problems that pop up, and her flea and tick, like Bravecto chews. Yeah, that's what's going on there. It looks messed up over here, but over here in the Target, it's about $175 a month, and Nathan will help me with this. Then I've got a category for Ms. Ginger, my sister's dog, and it's Golden Girl Ginger because she is 14 years old, so she's a golden girl. Obviously, there's been over $2,000 spent from here. I have no target for this at the moment. My plan with this is twofold. If I end up making buku bucks in a way that I'm just not expecting it, obviously I can put more money into this. But in general, how it's going to function for now is my sister is paying me back for half of this cost, and she's already sent me $100 for this. So when she sends me that money, I am going to specifically put it into this category, and it's essentially just going to be a holding fund for when her next medical expense pops up. So it's kind of like two different things. It's like I'm basically just reusing that money to help her in the future rather than shifting it back to my emergency fund. Okay, we got my fun category, so YOLO. At the end of the day, I know I'm planning for all this stuff, but you only live once, so I've got fun unspecified. This is kind of more so a tracking category. And then if I have any specific fun things I'm saving for, that's what's going on down here. So me and Nathan in February are going on a Buffalo Trace tour. I'm estimating $60 for that. Not because the tour itself is free, but you know, we drive in like 3 hours, you gotta eat somewhere, yada yada yada. Books, one of my hobbies is reading, so $50 each month. This is refill up to $50, so what that means is if I put $50 in here now, don't spend it. It's just going to like fund, like I'm not going to keep putting $50 in here and then at the end of the year have $700 or whatever to spend on books. It's just to have about $50 in case I want to buy a book or two. That's what's going on there. I really like going to live events, like concerts, sports, live events, ballet, whatever. I'm trying to set aside a small sinking fund for that the best I can, so $25 a month. fall festival. So I go to this fall festival every year. It's basically a family reunion, and I try to put aside about $200 each year for this. So I thought to myself, I might as well just split this across an entire year. So that's why it's $20 each month, because it's estimating that's how much I need by October or whatever. October date, October 20th, $200, and then it'll repeat each October. Summer singing fun, which is kind of might be a little bit redundant with concerts, sports, and live events, but I feel like I spend more money on fun stuff in the summertime. So summer 2025 right here, $35 each month, and then in theory summer rolls around and I have a couple $100 I can use for fun things. And I want to visit my friend who's in Pittsburgh, and I'm going to set aside $200 for that eventually. Don't have a set deadline. So that's YOLO. Obviously things will come and go over time. Now let's talk about entertainment. So I realized with entertainment, this is essentially just like a subscription category. I was always kind of paying for these things, but they didn't always necessarily have their own category. Sometimes they were just going into fun, unspecified, which again, if that's what you want to do, that's completely fine. But in an effort to be more honest with myself, I ended up breaking it out just to see what's going on. So my big entertainment subscriptions, I guess, are Spotify. I like to listen to music, pretty self-explanatory. Kindle Unlimited, I like to read. That's the same thing. Big Ten Plus, this is gymnastics specific, so I like watching gymnastics, college gymnastics, and sometimes you need to purchase like specific subscriptions in order to watch. Not everything is on like ESPN or whatever. And I guess I should clarify, I actually get ESPN from my sister's cable, so obviously that's not free. That's not free, which I guess you could also say that that's another reason why I should help cover certain expenses for her when they come up, because she helps cover expenses for me, even if they are as seemingly frivolous as just having access to ESPN. But yeah, that's what's going on there. Big Ten Plus is so I can watch the Big Ten. I live in Ohio, so we are Big Ten territory. That being said, I don't know if I'm actually going to purchase this. I'm going to see how it goes, because sometimes people post the meets on YouTube, and I find Big Ten Plus to be horrendous quality, so I'm not super interested in giving them $14 a month. I'm not going to lie to you. But that's just to cover the season, which is like January through April. I got into the WNBA last year, so Women's National Basketball League, and they have a league pass, and it's very well worth it. I think they have the opposite thing. It's incredibly worth it to do that, because every replay ends up on there, and I like watching replays of stuff if I don't see it live. So about $40. Patreon, I subscribe to one Patreon, $2.16 a month. YouTube Premium, I actually realized I was overpaying for YouTube Premium. Here's my recommendation to you: if you have any subscriptions through Apple, like you're getting billed through Apple, check that, whatever that is. For a lot of apps, it's not going to matter. Like, that's the only way you can purchase it. But YouTube is obviously its own entity or thing outside of their YouTube app on the iPhone. I did not realize that I was getting overcharged for YouTube Premium, aka I was getting a premium on YouTube Premium actually, because I was purchasing it or getting billed through Apple. So I've since canceled it, and I'm going to resubscribe through YouTube directly, and it's a little bit cheaper a month. So $24.83, I was paying like $33 something before. Actually kind of a big difference. But I didn't notice it because I know with Amazon they don't want you to purchase through the actual app because of this reason. I know that companies fight with Apple about this basically, because Apple gets a cut. And then Spotify is the same way. They're not going to let you, I don't think. Sometimes, at one point, they did not let you purchase through their app on your phone for the exact same reason. They just didn't want to pay Apple. Holidays and gifts. This is getting very long. So, again, I have chapters down below if you want to move around. But Black Friday, I like to spend money on Black Friday just for myself, honestly. So, $200 by November. Christmas, I'm doing about $800 by December. Christmas/holidays. So, I also like group in Thanksgiving with this. Christmas in July. This is literally just so I can try to see the Nutcracker again, but take advantage of their July promo, which is like 50% off tickets. Hopefully they do it again in this July. That way I don't have to spend or waste as much money as I did this year, because I got sick the day of the Nutcracker. So I'm hoping to save a little bit money in July by purchasing it sooner, basically. But that's that category. Gifts. This is just gifts like birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, any gifts I want to give people. That's what's going on there. And then I've got donations, $25 a month, I can do more, I'll do more. That's what's going on there. Technology. So new phone. I need a new phone. $700 by November. 99 cents a month for iCloud storage. I refuse to pay more than that. Apple Care. This combines together Apple Care for my iPad and my iPhone. Mac is its own thing, or my MacBook, I guess is what it should say. So Apple Care MacBook, it's yearly $86.44, and then chargers, etc. is just in case I need to get like a new charger for my phone or whatever. My technology, it is $50 one time, and that'll just sit there until I need something. My last category is just YouTube for like my hobby YouTube. So what you're looking at right now, this is this category. So I have Canva Pro for this, so it's $12.99 a month, so I can like make my thumbnails and stuff like that. And then I have just if I'm gonna make any sort of upgrades, it says $125, but it's $25 a month. So that's what's going on there. So that is my complete budget category set up. Now that I've shown you all of the nitty-gritty details, let's actually take the $17,000 I have and assign it out based off of my categories. I'm going to tell you right now that my goal with this is to basically cover as many things on a yearly basis as possible. So that's what's going to happen here. The very first thing I need to do, and I did not realize that YNAB did this when I was looking at this earlier, is that when you reset the available amounts, they take out the available amounts from your freaking credit card payments as well. So if we look over here on the far left, I have a bunch of balances on here. And essentially with YNAB, what it does is with credit card payments is when you make a purchase, you'll categorize it to whatever category it is. So like Apple Care comes out, if I pay for that with my credit card, it's going to take the $859 from here and move it down over to whatever category or credit card I end up using. That way, when it comes to actually paying the credit card, you have already have the money set aside. You can't overspend or not have enough money set aside. That's what's going on there. But since I reset my categories, maybe if I go into December, it'll show you like in December it says I have like $479 in here, blah blah blah, or I guess that was November. And then December, same thing. January, I reset everything, so it just brought it all back up here. So let's go ahead and fix this. I'm going to start with this first because I don't want to spend more money than I actually have. So it says over here I need to assign $3,167.02. Okay, so there we go. And then for my Journey card, 1074. Amex is $2,370.02. This is funny. I ended up using this American Express card and they ended up increasing my credit line. They said, okay, big spender. So they increased that line a little bit. Then my travel Amex, which will be retired soon, aka I'm going to cancel it in like July. I am transitioning my spending away from that, but $49.27. Now that I have done that, I have $11,540.93 remaining. I think what I want to start with here is rent, because truly, like, if you have nowhere to live, you are not going to be doing well with anything else. So I've already paid January's rent, so I'm going to go into February actually and just go ahead and set aside $672.50, and then I'm going to go ahead and do March's rent as well. This is kind of what I mean by like I want to fund as many things as possible up front. So that's what's happening there. So I already have January and March's rent covered. That way, when I get my next paycheck, I can start focusing on April's rent and just be ahead in that category. Back to January though, I really want to make it to where I am covering things as quickly as possible if it has a yearly expense with it. So with my renter's insurance, it says I need a balance of $250 by July. I'm literally just going to go ahead and set aside the $250. And then what I'm thinking is starting in February, and I know I'm going to have to redo all my targets for this, is now I can set it up to where I am essentially still setting money aside for this, but getting like a year ahead. Does that make sense? Like a year ahead. So in January of 2026, ideally, I'll have another $250 set aside that I was saving over the course of 2025. That way it covers my 2026 renter's insurance. When I realize this, I'm very excited. I really hope that works for me. But let's keep going. So $30 for my household. Moving. So I already had $500 in here, so I'm going to go ahead and add that back in. But then I'm going to add the $327.50. So it tells me over here I need to add $500 for my money removed, and then add in $327.50 to meet my actual target. So that comes to a total $827.50. So let's throw it in there. I already paid my phone, but I'm actually going to add $225 so I can switch to Mint Mobile. I currently have Straight Talk. I want to switch to Mint Mobile, so I'm going to try and take advantage of that deal I'm seeing, which seems to be about what this will be. So my portion of Costco is $65 because me and Nathan split this, so I'm going to put the whole $65 in here. I was saving for this over time, but I'm going to go ahead and just finish it out. YNAB, I'm going to do the same thing. So $120, it costs, I don't know the exact cost, but I added in some money just in case tax is charged because I cannot remember if that's the case. Stuff I forgot to budget for, just $25. And then my girls gotta eat. I've already spent $129.71, which I feel like is pretty good. So what I'm going to do here is I need to do some math actually. So 400 minus 129.71 is 270.29. Oh, actually I know what's going on. So 129, I actually have a purchase I need to do. I just spent $13 at a coffee shop. What does that look like? 142.71. So 400 minus 142.71, 257.29. I'm actually going to copy this and then add it into my groceries category. That way I am just setting aside $400 this month. And then if I end up spending money from coffee, I'll just move it around. But that's what's going on there. I told myself for my food spending is that I can eat literally whatever I want this month. I recommend trying this, honestly. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but it's been working well for me. But I told myself I can eat whatever I want this month, but it has to be from the grocery store. So things I have made by doing that is I have made biscuits and gravy, and I got it from Whole Foods, so the ingredients were great and it tasted amazing. And then I also made chicken and dumplings. That was really good. And then I don't really have anything in mind quite yet for this week, but I just have food already at home or whatever. I've also been making fajitas, so that's what's going on there. That's working really well for me. So it's like if I want to go to the grocery store and just like buy like the frozen macaroni and cheese or something, like anything I want, I can eat it. I just have to buy it at the grocery store instead of buying it out and about. Like if I want to eat wings, okay, go to the grocery store and buy some wings. Like it's fine. Moving on from there, let's go into debt and savings. So I want to put aside $584 for my Roth IRA, $500 for my insurance. Let's go ahead and cover the $190 for my student loans. That way I get back into the habit of actually covering that as they are currently in forbearance. Let's skip the brokerage for now. I'm going to do $44.12 into nephew's savings. I'm going to go ahead and actually put $100 into my income replacement fund, and hopefully over time I'm going to put about $100 or more every month into this. I'm going to skip wedding and house down payment though. Moving into my Avery improvement fund, we already covered spin classes, but let's cover everything else. So $25 for haircut, $50 for clothing and beauty, $30 for yoga, and $35 for personal development. Skip the cruise for now. We'll come back to it because I might end up doing something interesting with that. Let's see here. So I've already spent some money from this category. I'm not going to do this full $120 that they want. I'm going to put $30 in here, and then I'm going to snooze the category for the rest of the month because I already know that I'm not going to have another therapy appointment. So, but I might be behind on a bill. So $30 it is. $30 for my meds to get that up to the $40, and then $50 for medical supplies, copays, and everything else. I'm going to do the $130.58 it's asking for. That way, I don't know why. I got some refund and it screwed everything up. But yeah, $130.58. And then going forward, it'll be $125. Tires, I'm going to go ahead and put the $850 I need for tires. Then going forward, I'm going to set this category up to get them. I don't necessarily know if I'll need them every 5 years, but I'm going to set up to where it has me replacing them about every 5 years, and then that'll help me figure out how to save for my next pair of tires. Car insurance, it says I need $321 because I had been saving for this. I'm actually gonna put the whole $450 in here that I need. That way I'm already ready for March and I can start focusing on September. I've already spent money from fuel, so let's just put the remaining $43.41. $40 for part. We're already about halfway through the month. $140.40 for AAA. My car registration, I'm actually going to put the whole $75 in there right away. Same with the oil change, $150. My auto, I'm just going to do 100 for now because I'm getting the tires done, so hopefully I don't have any other problems. And then for my license renewal, $60. I'm already covered for this in 2027. This might sound like overkill to you, but I actually think like this is going to be very, I'm actually think once it's all said and done and I see everything that I already have up front covered for, I'm going to feel a lot better about my finances and my spending essentially, because I know that I have covered a lot of things or as many things as possible. That's what I'm thinking with that. Moving into dogs cost $1 trillion. I'm going to just go ahead and set aside the full $276 for her pet insurance that's due in August. Then for this, let's do the $91.25 it's asking for. Food, let's do the $40. Her vet, I just want to cover what was originally in here, which I think was $390. Yeah, $390.66. So put that back in, and then I'm gonna add another $934. Well, I'm gonna subtract out. Let's see. $400. So $400 into CC Vet. I'm fine with that because Nathan is going to send me some money later. So when he gets paid again, so there's that. Brief detour. I'm actually going to go ahead and put in, because my sister sent me the money, but I have not inflowed it yet. So $100. I'm going to inflow it directly into Golden Girl Ginger. So that's what's going on there. If I scroll back down, I have $100 in this category. So for Miss Ginger, that's what's going on there. Okay, let's get into YOLO. So you only live once. I'm going to put the whole 60 I need for this tour in February. $50 into books, $25 into sports and live events. And there's no like yearly bill with this or yearly amount I expect to pay. So that's why I'm not like, okay, let's take 25, multiply it by 12 and do $400 or whatever. That's what's going on there. So for the fall festival, I know it's $200, but I'm actually just going to go ahead and do 20 since it's more of a fun category and not a requirement. And then $35, I'm just going to save for the fall festival over time. Okay, so for Pittsburgh, I don't need it by a certain deadline, but I still want to do $25 into that. Moving on to entertainment, I am going to take advantage of something that Spotify has on Amazon. I have seen this a couple times on the internet, but I think I might finally take advantage of this. Although I will just tell you that they just took money out for this. So I just got a notification that my monthly payment came out for Spotify. That being said, going forward, what I can do is buy on Amazon their $99 Spotify premium gift card. So if you want to spend or save a little money on Spotify, you can look into that and redeem it. And then you have a whole year of Spotify for $99 a month, which is actually a significant savings. Versus paying it monthly for $12.89. Obviously, they do have a free version, but I'm not listening to ads. Like, I am not listening to ads. Okay, so $12.89 since I know it just came out, but then I'm going to add in $99. That way I can actually buy that gift card if that's what I want to do. Kindle Unlimited, there's no annual payment plan or whatever, unfortunately, so $12.89 there. Big Ten Plus, let's do the $14.03. League Pass, I'm just going to do the full $40. Patreon, it is billed monthly. Maybe I'll look into a yearly, but I don't know if it depends on the creator, I think. But let's do the 216 multiplied by 12. Well, did I do this right? Hold on. 216 multiplied by 12. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So $25.92 and then $24.83 into this. Another thing is if you have upcoming or scheduled transactions, it'll tell you if you're underfunded for this. And since I was originally paying $32.24, it's telling me I need to assign more money or else I'm going to go overspent. But I'm actually going to delete this transaction because, like I mentioned, my YouTube Premium is going to be cheaper when I sign up directly through YouTube later. Holidays and gifts. I am not going to upfront fund this. I'm just going to fund it monthly. So we're going to do $18.19 for Black Friday, $66.67 for Christmas and holidays, $21.43 for Christmas in July, $50 for gifts, $25 for donations. Moving into technology, I'm going to do I'm just gonna skip the phone because if you watched my goals video, you would know that I'm going to focus on this in like Q2 of the year. So ignoring it for now. 99 cents to my iCloud. I've already had part of AppleCare come out, so let's do the other 651. $865 a month for AppleCare MacBook, but I'm gonna do the whole $86.44 it says I need by October. Chargers, just one time $50 until I spend it, then I'll refill it up to $50 again. And then YouTube, something weird is happening with one of my YouTube categories. So let's take a look here. $12.99. For whatever reason, it says I need $125. I don't really care that I removed the $100. I was gonna start over, but if I just do the $25, if I go into next month for whatever reason, okay, now it's working. I don't know. Just ignore me. But $25, let's just put the other 100 in there. But yeah, now I have $2,973.60 remaining. We're going to go back into cruise. Let's go to there. So vacations. I'm going to go ahead and snooze the vacations generic target because I am not saving for an unspecific vacation right now. I'm saving specifically for the cruise. I'm just gonna go ahead and cover everything essentially, I think. So spending money, I don't necessarily need $350 anymore, so we're gonna do $200 because we're not going in on Saturday. We'll be there for one day basically. Drinks, although I don't think I'll spend this whole amount, let's just go ahead and do the $450 and see how this looks after everything's said and done. $250 for cash and additional tips. $200. I'm actually going to do $250 for Wi-Fi because I'm not sure if I did this right. I was looking at this again, and I think maybe when it's all said and done, it's going to be $250, which is a ton of money to have Wi-Fi on a cruise. Just keep in mind that I am planning, just in case I want to spend that money. It's possible, although I'm fairly certain I'm going to spend it, it's possible maybe I'll change my mind. I mean, I don't want to spend no $250. Like, I will maybe do that just in case. But that's what's going on there. $350 for excursions, $100 for dining. This is just special dining on the cruise. $200 for the gym. Miscellaneous. Let's put the $300 in there, see what that's going. $30 needed eventually for, or $30 for a casino. Okay, now I'm going to open every single category and just see if I missed or forgot anything. I want to put $75 into the garden, and then I want to do, or maybe I don't. Actually, let's pull the money out because with this remaining amount, okay, I've got CC here to help me with the rest. But what I was saying is I kind of want to take the rest of this money and make sure I'm covering my like must cover expenses for February. But I do think there's one thing I'm missing, which is my brokerage. Let's put $100 into that, you know, dream big and all that. Let me make sure there's nothing I skipped over that I definitely need to make sure I set money aside for. I don't think so, since we literally went through everything, but let's take a look. Okay, I think everything I wanted to cover has been covered, so let's go ahead and go into February and see how far I can go with $743.60. I'm actually going to do this a slightly different way, so I'm going to actually, instead of assigning the money, going through and assigning the money every single time, I'm going to basically highlight each thing I want to cover and see where I need to go with that. Because YNAB has this feature on the side over here on the right. Like, say I want to cover household and moving, I can just highlight both of them. It'll tell me I'm underfunded by $357.50, and then I can hit the underfunded button and it'll just automatically cover it. That being said, I don't really care too much about household and moving right now, so I'm going to look at other stuff. So stuff I forgot to budget for is a no. Groceries, maybe. Roth IRA, it's more of a cash flow thing. Student loans, let's highlight that one. I actually think what is interesting about like trying to cover as many of my bills, or set aside the money at least for each bill on a yearly basis as quickly as possible into the year, is that now when I'm looking through this, there's not a ton of things where I absolutely must have to set the money aside right away. Of course, once I actually reset up like the targets, I might feel differently when I start getting my paychecks in January, end of January and beginning of February. But for now, when I'm looking here, I don't have a whole ton of things since I already set aside money for my rent, and that was my most major expense each month. I don't have a ton of extra things besides like my food that needs to absolutely have money set aside. Does that make sense? But yeah, student loans, getting back into habit of setting aside money for that. My nephew savings, I'm going to leave alone. Haircuts, clothing, and beauty, we'll cover haircuts, and let's cover spin classes because that is a bill that comes out. I cannot pay it annually and probably would not want to just in case I want to change things up. Let's keep scrolling. Maybe we should cover therapy, although I think I might just do $30 into there, so let me not do that one. Meds, let's cover that. And what else do I have? Fuel. See, some of these I'm like, well, if I don't end up spending the $43.41 when it rolls over on February 1st, I don't need the whole amount of money, so maybe not. AAA membership, so it's already telling me I need $11.70. When I was looking at that one, it was actually telling me that because each year, this is kind of what I was talking about. So now that I've fully covered a year of AAA, I can start saving for next year's AAA right away. Auto, pet insurance, I think it might be doing the same thing. Groom, I'm going to leave those alone since Nathan is helping me with those. Like, he'll send me money for them. And then we've got all of these. We've got Spotify. I can snooze that once February hits. All of these. Some of these, yeah, I'm going to have to redo some of the targets on some of these. Let's cover iCloud and Apple Care, Canva, since that is a bill. So $403.08. And this is what I was talking about up here. You can do focus views. I'm going to make focus views, which tells me like what are the absolute must-haves. I just am not quite there yet because it's already halfway through the month and I need to actually, get this set up and going. But yeah, so now that I've highlighted all those, I'm going to click underfunded, and essentially it's gone ahead and covered all of the things I highlighted and said I wanted to fund. So taking a look here, student loans have been covered, spin classes, haircuts. I did haircuts specifically because I know regardless I'm going to need a haircut. I don't necessarily have anything specific in mind for clothing and beauty. Yoga, yada yada. So like if I don't use the money for yoga, it just rolls over. You know how it's going. Then we got meds, everything else. So let me unhighlight all these. Add an extra $30 into therapy, co-pays, medical supplies. I have $310.52 remaining. I'm kind of feeling maybe I just put that money into food for February. What do we think? I guess I'm asking and you're literally not there, so it's fine. Let's see. Concerts, live events, they're all kind of just not super duper important. So it's not the end of the world. Kindle Unlimited, even though it's not super important, it is a monthly bill that comes out and I can't pay it annually, so let's do that. Haven't actually signed up for Big 10 Plus, so I'm not too worried about that. We can do another $24.83 into YouTube Premium. So this remaining $272.80, I'm actually think I will go back. I don't know. Let me know. Do you think I should go ahead and put $75 into the garden? For now, I think I'm just going to put the remaining amount of money that I need into groceries for February and then put the remaining $22.80 into coffee for February. Actually, I lied. I'm going to take $15 out and I'm going to take that and move it into January spin classes because unfortunately I have been sick. Woo! I've been sick, so I had a late cancellation fee that's coming out just because I'm not trying to get everyone sick at the spin class because that's probably where I got sick in the first place. But yeah, so if we take a look here with some views, my underfunded, it's telling me I'm underfunded on stuff that I'm not necessarily going to cover. So what I can do instead is with my food, I'm doing something different so I can snooze these food categories. I've decided I'm where I need to be for auto. For future car, it's just not in the cards this month since I've got current car expenses. Fun, unspecified. Oh, it says I have one upcoming transaction. See, this is what I'm saying. I'm trying my best with everything, but it says I have, it's an athletic subscription, so I need $1 extra in there. So let me go back into February, I guess, and pull that dollar from, what is it called? I'm gonna pull the dollar from coffee, and then I'm going to take it and go back into January, go to underfunded, add it to my general fund category. New phone is going to get snoozed, and I'm going to leave the gardening category alone. But yeah, if I go ahead and take a look here, I've already set aside all the money I need for my phone expenses, Costco, YNAB. My cruise is completely covered, or at least it should be completely covered based off of my estimate. I have the money for the tires. I already have half of what I need this year for my car insurance, my AAA membership, my car registration, my yearly oil change, Spotify for the year, my WNBA League Pass. I've done a whole year of Patreon up front so I can get rid of that, or I can change that category target around. Apple Care for my MacBook. All of that has already been upfront covered for the year. And then as I add money in, like I'm still, so even though I don't have a specific emergency fund anymore, my main emergencies like my auto maintenance, my insurance, my medical, whatever issues, as I start adding money to those sinking funds on a monthly basis, that will help build up my reserves is what I'm thinking. And then my income replacement fund, if I continue to put $100 in there every month, essentially what I'm saying is I'm still going to have money, like my bank account balance is still going to go up in theory, as long as I don't have major expenses, but either way I should be prepared for them even though I don't have a specific emergency fund category anymore. Hopefully that makes sense. But yes, that is my 2025 budget setup in the budget software YNAB. I'm very excited for this year based off of how I've changed everything around. I think it'll end up really helping me a lot, but I hope you got something out of this video, or at least enjoyed seeing how someone sets up their budget for the year. If you like this video, I'd love it if you'd hit the like button, as it really helps support my channel. If you want to stick around and see how this ends up going for me and just any of my financial journey in general, hit the subscribe button and you can definitely see more videos soon. But otherwise, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye now.